So, be your name Buckspam or Bixby or Bray or Mordecai Ali Van Allen O'Shea, you're off to... Wait. That's not the right book. 1 second. She dropped into a crouch as the blade sailed overhead. She lashed out at his legs. He didn't even have time to cry out as she swept his feet out from under him. Nor did he have time to raise his weapon before she crouched over his chest, the iron-coated tip of the staff at his throat. She brought her mouth close to his ear. "My name is Selena Sardothian," she whispered, "but it makes no difference if my name's Selena or Lillian or bitch, because I'd still beat you no matter what you call me." Hey guys, this is Josh, and I'm going to be talking about a book that kind of dips my toe in the other pond. After a long time of my wife begging me to read this series, I finally gave it a shot to please her. And honestly, it's not too bad. That series is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I'd like to talk about it today. Most know this book. It is incredibly popular, and I would say it's one of the OG titans of the romantasy genre. Now, I think it's been kind of superseded by the ACOTAR series, but I think Throne of Glass really propelled the romantasy genre. And if you're not familiar with the series, we follow a teenage assassin who is essentially forced into this competition and brought into the middle of this tyrannical kingdom run by a corrupt king. And she's forced into this competition where if she doesn't succeed and win it, she's going to be sent back to her imprisonment, which is essentially a concentration camp. I mean, it's brutal conditions. And if she wins, she has the opportunity at freedom. She has to serve under the king. But that's essentially the main idea of the story that we're presented in the beginning. In my opinion, the book is pretty decent. There are enough storylines that are opened up and hinted at that you can tell this series is much larger, even if you didn't already know the grand praise that's behind this series. The book, like I already said, it kind of follows a standard tournament style arc. So this book kind of follows a tournament style setting in a corrupt kingdom. So you experience a few different point of views through this book and a few minor ones, but it mainly follows 3 main people: Selena, Cole, which I know it's pronounced Kale, or something like that, but my wife always said Cole, and that's what I have in my head before I actually found out how it's pronounced. I honestly think that Cole sounds better. And then Dorian. So those are the main POVs, and then there, like I said, there are a few other ones, but they don't have that as much spotlight on them. The prose is nice. It's well done. I would say it's a nice middle ground between flowery and simple, maybe leaning more so on the simple side, but that's definitely not like a bad thing. Throne of Glass explores several different themes. The first one being identity and redemption. This is probably the main exploration of book 1. We first meet Selena, who is a prisoner, and she is pretty, I'd say, a husk of her former self. You can tell there's a lot of fire in her, but as you come to find as she gets brought in, that she's just very weak, very malnourished, and yeah, she's just kind of, it's her journey of recovery and bring her back to her former glory. The second theme is about friendship and loyalty, And I think this is honestly the strongest suit of the book. The book. The book. The relationships between Selena, Dorian, and Cole play a significant role in demonstrating trust, especially since the world is filled with betrayal and corruption. The third theme is about magic and mystery. And while this world is, from what we're told, completely void of magic because the king has made laws against it, and essentially I think just kills anybody that shows any magical inclination. But quickly we discovered that there are little cracks in that, and you see little remnants of the old age of magic and kind of some newer stuff sprinkled in, and it's very subtle, and then it kind of builds up near the end. And then along that there are some mysteries about like these symbols and what they mean, and while not all the answers are there, like I said before, there's a lot hinted at that they will mean a much more significant role in future entries of this series. The fourth theme of this book is power and corruption. The novel showcases the King of Adeline abuse of power and how the corruption of authority can negatively impact society and the kingdom and surrounding cities that is going on. Bill is what I have at the end of that. I don't know. So we have, I would say, 4 main protagonists or main people that we follow. Three main ones, and then one kind of side character that I think is going to play a more significant role in later series. But first one, we got Selena Sardothian, who's a teenage assassin, and she's extremely cocky, and it's not completely unfounded. We do see little glimpses of her being kind of a badass, but this is about her journey and her entering a competition to win her freedom and become the king's champion. That's the title that is granted at the end of the competition. Then we have Dorian, who is the crown prince to the King of Adeline, and he offers freedom to win the competition to Selena in exchange for 4 years of servitude to the king, who I think he initially offers 6 years, but Selena has to have some victory in every negotiation, every argument, so she was able to negotiate it down to 4 years. And then we have Cole. He's the captain of the guard, and he is essentially tasked with helping Selena train and recover, and be her main, like, almost, I don't want to say sponsor, but keeper, the person that's like keeping watch of her. And I mean, she's a prisoner and well-known assassin, so yeah, they don't fully trust her yet, so yeah, he's essentially her keeper. And then the last main one, I think, is Nehemia, if I'm saying that right. She is sent to Rifthold by her father, the king of Elway, I think, to learn the northern customs, but there's a little more to it than that. A lot of things I have read about the experience that other people have of this book, especially when I was kind of looking at some reviews and seeing what other people's opinions were, is that it kind of comes off juvenile and that it's some of her weakest writing, especially compared to her later entries and her other series that she has going on. And I can see that to a certain degree. I myself, I said it in the beginning, but I remember I tried listening to this audiobook, or listening to it as an audiobook several years ago, and I don't know if it was the narrator or if I was just like in a different state of mind at the time, but Selena came off just like excessively cocky, and kind of like some of the moments were a little cringy in the beginning, which I still agree to some extent. But after my wife convinced me to give it another shot, and I really wanted to go into this story just like not having that prejudice of like, oh, this is not going to be like, this is just going to be a romantasy, like a girly book. Or I'm glad I kind of did my best to get rid of those prejudices, because it is a good book. I can tell it's not her strongest, but I think she was like 16 when she first started writing this series. So a lot of credit. I mean, obviously she went back and she did some edits, but starting something like this and having this like grand story in mind at such a young age, and being able to actually put the work in and write it, is very, very impressive. And it kind of, I would say, plays into why it's not like overly mature, and like it's pretty tame on the romance side of things. I want to talk about some strengths. First off, I think it has an intriguing mystery going on. I don't want to spoil anything, but throughout the competition, things happen to some of the contestants and nobody knows what's going on. And so it's about, she's trying to figure out what's happening in that area. And then there's these symbols called word marks. And this is kind of what I was talking about, how they're like relics of the past, of a more magical world that's kind of been washed over. But they're still like ingrained in the castle. Another strength, which, like I said, is my favorite part of the book, is the characters are really well done. While I guess the characters themselves can kind of be a little stereotypical, I think the dialogue between Selena and the side characters, and the side characters between each other, is really well done, really witty. I love the banter. I remember I laughed out loud a few different times, which I feel like in these types of books, there's not a lot of great humor. And so that makes me happy that that's in there. And knowing that this is what a lot of people say is her weakest entry has me really excited about her future books. Another great strength is that it's a strong female character. I think there's a lot of readers that don't read on different sides. Like, typically there's like the romantasy side, and then like the science fiction fantasy that's like more catered towards men. And so I think this is a great book out there that has a strong female character that any side can really enjoy. With that being said, there are some weaknesses. I did find it, and I had to talk with this about my wife, but I found the contrast between badass assassin and kind of like girly moments where she was overly concerned with her appearance. I felt that wasn't necessarily, it kind of took me out of the moment, because it seemed strange that like this assassin who's killed tons of people, that she was letting her thoughts be taken over by seemingly unimportant things. But my wife makes a lot of good points, because that's kind of like her past is about being this cute, attractive female that's kind of gains the trust of men, and takes advantage of that. Another weakness is I feel the author utilized a lot of tell versus show. It wasn't terrible, just a little weakness I noticed. And then the last one, it was somewhat a predictable plot. I mean, I've read a lot of other stories that kind of have this like tournament style entry, and so I mean, you knew she was gonna win. There was just some major reveals at the end about like the mystery, the main mystery of the story, that I was who we were kind of being led to believe it was, I thought was a red herring. But it wasn't. It was just who it was. And I'll just leave it at that. Overall, I would have to rate this book. I think after giving it a couple weeks of thinking about it, I think it sits at a 3.75 out of 5.
I was going to say out of 10. Vacuum.
A 3.75 out of 5, which out of 10, that's 7.5, which is good, above average. And my initial reaction was going to be like a 4-star or 4.25, but after sitting on it a little bit, I didn't feel like it didn't wow me. It didn't like, the characters were really fun and really entertaining to whenever they interacted with each other, read about. But that's the part that I like the most. And normally I think I'm a plot-driven person, so when the plot was pretty predictable, it didn't really leave me much to enjoy in that regard. But I dropped my rating a little bit because I know that the other books are going to be really good. So I kind of left myself some room for those books to be rated higher. What? 6 out of 5?